Are specifically in Horse Pasture Canyon, which is the head towards the head of Dark Canyon. Dark Canyon is a large canyon system. It was actually the first canyon system that was designated wilderness on the Colorado Plateau. So this is a very unique wilderness area. It basically starts at higher elevations up on Elk Ridge. So you've got a really unique vegetation types here, ranging from like aspen and Douglas fir, coming down to ponderosas, and eventually into more arid like pinyon, juniper, and sagebrush vegetation. So it's a really unique wilderness in that it protects a lot of different ecosystem types. Dark Canyon itself, we have a trail system in here that we manage and we maintain. It's wilderness, so it's still fairly primitive, but there's some great opportunities for backpacking here. There's a 40-mile loop that comes down Peavine Canyon and up Dark Canyon, and there's numerous places for day hikes, like where we're at here now is a great place to come in and just do a day hike or a shorter backpack trip. Horse packing is also something that's available here, popular with people to bring horses or mules in and bring all their equipment in. Those are the main ways to get into the wilderness. The wilderness is essentially managed for it to maintain its naturalness and opportunities for primitive recreation, and also for solitude, opportunities for solitude. And solitude is one of the big qualities we have here in Dark Canyon. It's fairly hard to get to. The logistics are kind of hard, but if you make the effort to get out here, you're pretty much going to experience some pretty wild country. One of my favorite parts about Dark Canyon is spending the night down here, and the skies just turn pitch black. You get this amazing view of the stars with very little light pollution. You often see the Milky Way as well, stretching out over the rim of the canyon. The wilderness itself is basically a horseshoe-shaped canyon system, which is Wooden Shoe on one side and Dark Canyon that comes down the other. The canyons cut through Cedar Mesa sandstone, so you've got these big, huge walls, towers, a lot of arches as you go up and down the canyon. So the natural setting is just really spectacular. And on top of that, the factor that makes Dark Canyon such a unique wilderness is we have a really interesting and intact cultural overlay on the canyon here. So people have been living in this canyon for thousands of years, starting with Paleo Indians and then moving into a lot of the big archaeology that you see here is from the ancestral Puebloans that a lot of people know as Anasazi. And there's a lot of those type of ruins in the canyon that kind of show the long habitation from people living here. At some point in history, behind us is probably a giant cornfield. There's ruins all over in this canyon itself where they would store the corn, and that's a really unique feature of the wilderness and very sensitive feature as well. It's something we try to protect and manage so that other folks can see it in pristine conditions. There's also a lot of historical resources that are still here. Just down below us here in the canyon, you have what's known as Skorup Cabin. That's a historic cabin that was used by the Skorup Cattle Company during the turn of the century. Really intact, wood stove, a lot of different things you can see in there that show the historic Anglo settlement of the canyon as well. So I mentioned here in the wilderness, we manage it for naturalness, so we're really to teach people leave no trace techniques when they come down here. You know, fires are allowed. Permits are not required right now just because we have a low amount of use. But when you do come down, we ask that people try to use an existing campsite with an existing fire ring and not build new ones. We ask that people don't build camp furniture down here, you know, whether it's chairs or tables out of rocks and stuff, and really leave the area as natural as possible. The other big potential impact that the recreation use can have is on these archaeological sites. And when you visit those, you want to make sure you do it in a very sensitive way. Before you approach the site, you want to look at it and see where the most hardened area is. If there's an existing trail, you want to use that. You do not want to climb on walls or put any weight on the walls, climb through doors or anything like that, because the accumulated amount of people that do that is eventually going to knock that ruin down. Some of our structures here actually still have roofs intact. You definitely don't want to be standing on a roof. These are 1,000-year-old structures and are very sensitive to that type of impact. So if you do visit these sites, be incredibly careful when you visit them. There's also pottery shards and artifacts that are protected under the Antiquities Act, as well as the ruins. So if you see those things, leave them in place. Don't pile them into a little pile and make an outdoor museum, but leave them where they are. The context of those artifacts is what is important to the archaeologists to determine how people lived here and the time frames they lived and the pathways that they made a living down here. So we just ask the people, it's okay to visit them. It's an amazing place to visit these sites, but really be careful when you do it. Leave the artifacts there and don't put any weight on the walls or climb through the doors. And here in Dark Canyon, we really have a very unique wilderness. It's a place that people don't expect when they come here, with Cedar Mesa sandstone walls and towers, and with the really unique cultural overlay, the opportunity to visit places where people have lived 1,000 years ago and still see exactly how they lived and where they lived is incredibly unique. But the future of this place and maintaining the naturalness of it and really the cultural importance of it is really up to visitors. And when you come here, we ask that people come, enjoy their public lands, and enjoy this wild landscape, but do it in a sensitive way and leave no trace.